So I had woken up not too long ago. Um, I have a tendency to wake up before my alarm goes off, mostly because A, I have to use the bathroom, and B, restlessness. Um, I drink a lot of fluid throughout the day. Um, if I were to put a guess as to how much fluid I would drink each day, I would probably say like a gallon and a half of either water, tea, or coffee. Um, for the most part, my drinks are unsweetened, except for coffee, and occasionally some of the teas. But I've been drinking more sugar lately, so I need to cut back on that. I thought I would make this video talking about the day my dad died. Maybe I might get some closure just talking about it. Not going to mention any names for obvious reasons, but I remember it was November 10th, 2017. It was actually 13 days before his 42nd birthday. And that was actually the day I was going to buy him a birthday gift because I had been putting it off, mainly just procrastinating and also waiting to see how much money I would actually bring in on my next paycheck. So I remember that day I went to school. The only thing I remembered was I took, as my first course for that day, Quantum Physics 1. I don't remember the other classes I took. I think I had 3 classes that day. Don't remember the others. I think the others were either astrophysics and statistical mechanics. Those were the only other 2 classes I could probably think of that I was taking that day as well. I don't remember the order, but... And I guess to provide some context, most of the time, actually no, during my time at university, I would take the bus, sometimes at around 7 o'clock in the morning. So I would actually get up an hour before the bus would get to the stop, brush my teeth, get dressed, and get out the door. I would eat breakfast on campus. That way I can at least get a little more sleep. I did spend a little bit more money than I should have, but at the same time, I preferred my sleep over the money. So, usually I would take the bus around 7 o'clock to campus. If I was lucky throughout the semester, I would take it later. So I would take the bus sometime mid-morning, like maybe around 9 or 10. And then then the bus would take me to the train station, and I would take the train station down to close to where my college campus was, and then I would take a bus that actually went from that train station to campus. So all in all, my commute time each day was about 3 hours, at least. 1.5 hours each way. Now, I didn't mind it terribly, and granted, I did not drive or have a car. I'm actually not even getting my license till tomorrow, and I'm 30. So it kind of tells you how long I've circumvented the issue of not driving. So anyway, I would do that, and usually after class, I would take the bus back home, or I would take it to work, and then work, a few hours for my shift, like 5 hours, and then go back home. So, I remember that day, got up, went to school like any other day, took the bus back. I knew I was working that day. At the time I was working at McDonald's, so that day I think that was just the only job I was working, because I would rotate between days working at my community college as a tutor and then working fast food. So I knew that day I was working at McDonald's. Can't remember what time I had gotten there, but I worked a few hours, And then as I was clocking out and waiting for one of my parents to pick me up, because usually it would be a crapshoot as to which one would pick me up, I saw that it was my mom. And she seemed very stoic, which was a little unusual, but I knew at the time that, you know, they were going through a divorce. So I didn't say anything, because, you know, I probably figured it just had something to do with the situation. So she picked me up, and went to Chick-fil-A, which was actually right next door. Got some dinner. The whole time she seemed very stoic, which I thought, you know, at this point was odd, because she was never really like that. So we get our food, go home. You know, we get inside, and I hadn't really even put all my stuff down and gotten settled until we're called into the living room. And, you know, that's when she broke the news. Now, the first time I heard it, I thought, you know, she meant her dad, for whatever reason, or, you know, my biological dad, who I had never seen before, because at the time I was 24 when all this happened. But no, like, I didn't ask, but my brain was processing the other possibilities before coming to the conclusion that, you know, it was my stepfather that had passed away. I think it was my brain just not wanting to actually accept that information at first. So I called my friend, who happened to live down the street at the time, and, you know, I broke down in front of him. That was the first time I'd actually ever completely broken down. Hung out with him for a little bit. I managed to eat some food. But granted, you know, the next 1 or 2 weeks my appetite was pretty much gone. Then eventually one of my other close friends, you know, hung out with me as well, and we talked about it. But that day was really the one day that I actually cried. There were a couple other times afterwards, but for some reason I find it very difficult to do so, you know, to cry. Doesn't matter what the situation is, because normally I'm pretty stoic as well in terms of my facial expression whenever I'm out in public, you know. So I don't really look approachable, is what I'm saying. But, you know, that day was rough. Apparently my mother got the news, from what I was told, around 10 o'clock. A couple police officers came by, you know, and gave her the news. I was also, you know, I mentioned this before in another video, I was angered to learn that the person that my dad was dating at the time decided to run off with a bunch of his stuff and continued to harass my mother. So that kind of planted the seed for my anger for the next several years. That and what had happened between basically my mother and, you know, my stepdad's ex-wife and his biological kids. They basically ganged up against my mother for the life insurance money. At the very least, they wanted a portion of it, but she was the beneficiary. So that really angered me, because in my mind, I was putting myself in the shoes of the daughters, and I was just thinking, your father had just died, and all you can think about is banding together with your mother to get the money. At that point, I knew about the money, but I didn't care to ask for it, because I didn't really give a shit. The money can't bring my dad back. And sure, he was flawed, but I was starting to think towards the end we were at least having a better relationship. And then this happened. I guess you can say I feel bad because I was never an emotionally intelligent person. And I guess in my dad's eyes, I don't know if he ever saw that or believed it, because there were times where he just thought I was being an asshole, and I really just didn't understand the situation. But I took the next I took the next week off from school. I took 2 weeks off from work. I guess that wasn't enough time, because shortly after I got fired from my job at McDonald's. And I'll talk about that in another video. Yeah, the stress was definitely still there after just a couple weeks. Even if I thought I was getting back to a normal sense of a routine, everything was just being suppressed. So, anyway, video's getting long, so I thought I would stop it here. I'll talk about the time that I got fired. That's an interesting story. Anyway.